Hey, what's going on, Who That Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And this is a special live edition of the State of the Saints podcast where I'm just going to take a few minutes, not long, to answer some of the questions that you may have about the New Orleans Saints. Me and my brother EJ, we did a podcast on last night. And, some people did ask some questions and we were able to answer some of them. But I always feel bad because it feels like I'm picking and choosing and I don't like to do that. So if you have any questions that you want to, give about the black and gold, you can do so right now. I encourage you all to check out the podcast that me and my big brother EJ Jones did on last night. We talked a little bit about Drew Brees being the best quarterback. Do we believe that Drew Brees is the best quarterback in the NFL? We talked about Jameis Winston's role with the New Orleans Saints and could it possibly be a long-term thing? And we also talked about some undrafted free agents, man. So be sure you check out the State of the Saints podcast video that's available on YouTube. YouTube.com, search The State of the Saints podcast. But like I said, this is dedicated to you all. So if you have any questions about the black and gold, you want to ask me any questions about the Saints, you can do so. I will answer anything. I know a lot of people have been asking me, in regards to Taysom Hill's role and Jameis Winston's role. Is this going to be like an issue? Like, will Taysom Hill not be the future of the New Orleans Saints? Will this stun his growth because Jameis Winston is there? Me personally, I don't think that it's going to be an issue. I just think that the Saints are trying to make sure that they have a plan in place. Last year, it was an unfortunate circumstance. Drew Brees went down for 5 games, and luckily they did sign back Teddy Bridgewater in order for him to kind of man the ship until Drew Brees came back. So I think the Saints are looking at that type of situation, and they rather be over-prepared than not prepared at all. So I think that it was a good move by getting Jameis Winston. I think Jameis Winston coming to the New Orleans Saints is a good idea on his part. It can be a career-saving type move for him to try to change some of the bad habits that he have and also sit behind a Hall of Fame quarterback and kind of learn from him and, just kind of develop his game. I feel like Jameis Winston, got a bad shake out there in Tampa. I think they expected him to be just the is-all and the be-all, and he didn't have opportunity to make mistakes. And, a lot of coaches out there, they weren't really prepared to kind of train and teach Jameis Winston the right way to play the quarterback position. So I think by him sitting down and looking and being a student of the game more so than actually playing the game, I think it'll be helpful to him. So I think that it's going to slow him down. The game is going to slow down for him because he's going to be able to look at it from the outside instead of being in the actual game. Courtney says, if you have to grade the defense as a whole, what do you stand? Well, if you're asking me to grade the defense, I would give the defense a B-. I think that we have a good defense. Not great, not elite, just good. They do a lot of good things. I could think about a couple years back they had struggles with tackling. That was one thing that I felt like the New Orleans Saints need to get better at, and that's tackling. A lot of guys were, getting free from some of the Saints player tackles, especially at the linebacker position. The linebacker position with the addition of Alex Anzalone, Demario Davis, Kiko Alonso, and during the time A.J. Klein, it got a whole lot better. So the defense itself is better, as far as the pass rush and even the secondary. I know a lot of people are kind of raising their eyebrows about the secondary, but I think we all can agree it was much better than it was before 2017. The Saints had some pretty consistent secondary play, by some of these young players, and in my opinion, they're only going to get better. So right now, I think they stand at about a B-. I think they can get better. There's room for improvement. One thing in particular is somebody on the opposite side of Cameron Jordan to get pressure on the quarterback. Some consistent play out of the defensive tackles. Sheldon Rankins, as good as he is, he's been injured over the past few years. But if he can stay healthy throughout a 16-game season as well as into the playoffs, I think the Saints will be able to do something really, really special this season. But it's all up to these guys and how they perform. But I would give the defense once again a B minus. Ontario says if Brees goes down again, I don't think he gets his job back. I really don't believe that. It depends on the severity of the injury, Ontario. I think that Drew Brees has enough skins on the wall for him to get hurt, to come back and still be the starting quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. It's going to have to take some kind of catastrophic injury in order for Drew Brees not to be able to come back. It's going to have to be like the doctors versus Drew Brees, the organization and the doctors versus Drew Brees, and they're not feeling like that's the best choice for Drew if he gets hurt and him sitting down for the rest of the year. I don't see that happening, man. I think that Drew Brees, no matter how good the backup quarterback is playing, the Saints are going to plug him right back in because, one, they feel like they owe it to Drew Brees, and number two, I mean, it's still his job. Drew Brees, regardless of how you feel about him today, rather, you're kind of sour on him like some members of the Who Dat Nation are, he still deserves to leave on his own terms, man. So it's not really up to us to kick him up out of the door. It's not like he's playing so awful to a point where, we need to be walking with our pitchforks and torches. It's just the fact that he doesn't have the arm strength that he once had. And, I just feel like sometimes, they throw the ball a little bit too much with him. But he still deserves to finish on his own terms. So if he does get hurt, which I highly doubt, I don't think it's going to affect anything. I think Juwan Johnson and Marquise Callaway are making the team. Yeah, Jamarcus, I think they're probably going to make the team, but they're most likely going to be on the practice squad. I don't see either one of these guys stepping in to be a starter, being a rotation at wide receiver. The Saints have a very deep wide receiver corps. It's very, very deep. You have to think about, you got Michael Thomas, you got Emmanuel Sanders, you got Traquan Smith. You also have Deontay Harris, who is coming on and came on towards the latter part of the year, servicing almost like that Ted Ginn Jr. role. And you still have Lil Jordan Humphreys and Emmanuel Butler, who guys that were off and on the practice squad. Well, not Emmanuel Butler. He was on the practice squad most of the year. But Lil Jordan Humphreys, who came on and off the practice squad, and he did some real good things for the New Orleans Saints. One in particular was the blocking game. So he's already a good blocker. The Saints trust him in a blocking game. And that a year into the system, he is going to get a little bit more opportunities. So I don't see like Callaway unless they just blow it out of the water, or Juwan Johnson, if they blow it out of the water, these guys going to be starting over some of the guys that I just named. One thing, that works in the favor of a guy like a Traquan or a Lil Jordan or Emmanuel is the fact that they've been in this system and other guys are playing catch up. And you have to keep into account, this is not a regular NFL season. This is not a regular NFL offseason. A lot of guys are not with the team, like they're basically working out virtually. They're having press conference virtually. It's a lot of FaceTime, and Coach Sean Payton is counting on these guys to get prepared by themselves. So, the fact that there's a lack of chemistry between these guys, especially from the quarterbacks to wide receivers, their production can indeed suffer. So the guys that actually been with Drew Brees, that been with Taysom Hill, that's been catching passes from him, these guys have a leg up on some of these undrafted free agents. Not to say that these undrafted free agents can't make the team, but I say that they're probably not going to get a fair shake due to the fact of this pandemic. It's going to cost them possibly a spot at the starting position. I mean, they're going to have to come into August, like they hell set on fire or something like that. So that's probably going to be beneficial to guys like Lil Jordan and Emmanuel Butler. Joe says, do you think we should have paid Winston more than $1.1 million? No, if it was a situation where the Saints felt like, he deserved more and his representation wanted him to get more, then absolutely. But it seems like to me like he's pretty he's pretty straight on about getting $1.1 million. He's okay with that. He's content. That's the word I'm looking for. He's content at the fact of getting $1.1 million. Look, Jameis Winston had an opportunity. Jameis Winston had an opportunity to go to another team. You know, he had opportunity to go play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He could have easily been in that rotation. You never know what you're going to get with Big Ben Roethlisberger. Over the past couple of years, Big Ben has missed a substantial amount of games. And we know that Jameis Winston probably could have got an opportunity to play in Pittsburgh. But he decided that he wanted to take a step back. He wanted to humble himself and come to New Orleans and possibly learn from Sean Payton and Drew Brees. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's also nothing wrong with humbling yourself to a point where, you know, you're taking this amount of money now for a bigger investment in yourself in the end. I mean, you look at somebody like Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, he did the same thing. You know, he had opportunity to make a lot of money in Miami. He turned it down to come to New Orleans to play for the Saints. And, you know, he could have made a lot more money in Miami, but he decided to take less and back up Drew Brees. And now we see what happened with him. He making $63 million over 3 years. So it's good for a player to invest in himself. It's also important for us to realize what we actually are sometimes. You know, sometimes like it's hard for us to look in a mirror and say that we're not good at something or we need to grow or we need to develop. When we have that very tough conversation with ourselves, we end up making better decisions. You know, when we decide that we want to make a change in our life and sometimes we're going to have to take a step back to do it, we end up becoming better people. And I feel like it's the same way with Jameis Winston. I feel like he will become a better quarterback by the decision that he made. So I'm proud of him for doing that, man. And I think he's going to learn a lot for the Saints. And I think it's going to be very beneficial to his future. Let's see. Well, it says TJ is signing AK a pressure issue for the Saints right now, or could you imagine Leonard Fournette becoming Hey, Eric, you know I answered that question for you on the podcast. I know you answered you asked that question last night on the podcast about Alvin Kamara, man. Me and my brother actually answered that question for you, but I'll do it right now for you since you're on the live. You know, I don't think that Alvin Kamara is going to be an issue. I think the Saints are going to end up signing him. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. As far as Leonard Fournette is concerned, I don't see him playing for the Saints. Because somebody is going to offer Leonard Fournette a substantial amount of money to play running back for their team. And if you're the Saints, I don't think that's a good idea for you to be signing Alvin Kamara and then turn around and talk about getting Leonard Fournette, you know, for a whole bunch of money as well. So I would go with Alvin Kamara because, in my opinion, I feel like Alvin Kamara can do a little bit more at this stage of their career than Leonard Fournette can. You know, Leonard Fournette is a power runner. He's a guy that can run downhill. He's fast. You know, he can catch a little bit out of the backfield, but not at the volume of Alvin Kamara. So I think that Alvin Kamara is going to get signed by the New Orleans Saints. Juan says, I am personally not sold on neither Taysom or Jameis. I do like them, but I just want someone new, a college quarterback. Juan, thank you very much. It seems like to me, I could be wrong, but it seems to me like Sean Payton is not really high on young college quarterbacks. I mean, I know he signed Tommy Stevens, but that's not like a long-term commitment. And I highly doubt if Sean Payton looks at him as the starting quarterback of the Saints 5-10 years from now. I really don't feel that way about that. He's a guy that he looks at as a project. It looks like Sean Payton is mostly high on some of these guys that have already been in the league, guys that are seasoned veterans, guys that the game is slowed down for. I think that he gives these guys better shots than some of these other young quarterbacks. I think Garrett Grayson kind of left a bad taste in his mouth, drafted him third round out of Colorado State, and it didn't pan out for him. So I think that he looks at some of these other veteran quarterbacks that can come in and he can kind of teach, and these guys understand different offensive play patterns and different systems and stuff like that. And it's not like you're basically just starting from the basement and trying to work your way into the executive floor. I think that it's probably guys that's on the elevator. He looks at them as being on the elevator on the way to the executive floor. And I'm talking about some of those veteran players. So I understand what you're saying, Juan, but it seems like to me Sean Payton is not really high on college players. DeMarcus says, was drafting a center for the second year in a row, was it necessary? DeMarcus, I guess when I was thinking about it, I'm pretty sure everybody's seen that video, me snapping, you know what I'm saying, during the NFL draft when I was upset. But when I had time to think about it and analyze what they were actually doing, one, I say this quite a bit. I've been saying it for about a week and a half. This is what we like to call the 2017 effect, man. All those great draft picks that the Saints had, it's time to pay those guys. And unfortunately, because you have to pay these guys, some guys are going to have to suffer and have to end up getting cut. And one guy in particular is Larry Woolford. Now, Larry Woolford is a good guard. I mean, he's a very good guard, man. Pro Bowl caliber, could be an all-pro, depends on the team that he play on. But at the same time, he's demanding $8 million. And what are you going to do? You can get a guy like Eric McCoy, who is a center, but he also played guard in college. You can slide him over and put Cesar Ruiz as the primary center, or vice versa. You know, for the first year, you can put Ruiz as a guard and then transition him to a center, and you don't have to pay anything but a rookie deal. So the Saints can get these guys into the rotation, possibly trade or release Larry Woolford. And you can also have some money that's freed up to get some of these other guys on a payroll, like a Marshawn Lattimore, like a Ryan Ramczyk, like a Alvin Kamara. So what you're seeing is the 2017 effect. I mean, these guys have given the Saints so much production over the past 3 to 4 years. Now it's time to pay these guys, and the Saints are going to have to make some tough decisions. It was the decision of getting Cesar Ruiz, and it was the decision of only having 4 draft picks in this year's draft, in my opinion. So I think that was the reason why. And it's not so much about, DeMarcus. It's not so much about just drafting 2 of the same positions. It's guys that can play guard as well as center, and you can get them playing for the cheap. Kimberly said, I don't know about y'all, but I'm ready to make another run for it. Yeah, Kimberly, I think we're all ready to make a run, for another championship, and I think the Saints are poised to do so. This is one of those years, man, where chemistry is going to mean a lot to a team. Once again, we're dealing with a pandemic. People are quarantining. People can't go. People can't travel. People can't be around each other. And chemistry is going to be a key factor for some of these teams that have been together for a long time. Some of these teams that are just starting to get together, I feel like they're going to suffer, man, because you can't rely on, let's go to San Diego if you're Drew Brees, and, let's go with Marcus Callaway, and let's go with Juwan Johnson. Let's go out here to San Diego and let's throw the ball around so you can understand my time and then I can understand yours. You can't do that. Teams are going to suffer, man. You can't have Tom Brady going out there running routes with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and O.J. Howard and stuff. So it's going to take some time for guys that have not been together to develop chemistry versus a Saints team that's pretty much intact. And I think that we can really truly say when we look back at it at the time, we were like, what the hell are they doing? But we have to give the Saints credit, man. We really do. We have to give them credit because they kept this team together, man, because I think they felt like, man, this is going to be a pandemic. People can't move around. And it's probably best for us to get guys that are familiar with our system back together so we can make another run, because teams that are rebuilding and changing this and changing that around might end up having a bad shake because of lack of chemistry between players and not being able to have OTAs and mini camps and rookie mini camps together. So I am ready for football, though. In your opinion, are we going to the Super Bowl in Brees last year? In my opinion, I hope so. I don't want to say yes, they're going to the Super Bowl, man. I'm very superstitious on that. So I want them to go to the Super Bowl, but I'm not going to call that. I'm not calling my shot. I'm too superstitious for that. Roland PS says, start of season, will Winston be number 2? Yeah, he will be the backup quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. Taysom Hill will serve as his same role, the Swiss Army knife role. That was the whole reason why the Saints ended up getting Jameis, and that came out of the mouth of Sean Payton. My big brother EJ says, I think a significant injury to Drew Brees will end his career at this point in his life. Well, we don't want to wish that bad. We don't want to wish that on him, EJ. I don't know, man. I think we taking this thumb injury and we blowing it way out of proportion. This wasn't a knee injury. This wasn't a shoulder injury. This wasn't a back injury. This wasn't a pectoral injury. This was a thumb injury, man. It didn't affect any of his lower extremities. at all. You know what I'm saying? It didn't affect his ability to throw the ball with any type of velocity than he already have before. It was just a unfortunate circumstance, man. You know, he hit his thumb on the helmet of Aaron Donald. And I don't look at Drew Brees getting hurt this season. I think he's going to play all 16 games. What grade would you give Marcus Davenport? DeMarcus, I would give Marcus Davenport a solid C. I'm going to give him a C because, quite frankly, I'm going to break it down into 2 points here. Overall, I would give him a C. As far as like some of the things that he does, I'm going to give him a B minus. I feel like B minus comes from the fact of him being able to stop the run. Occasionally him getting pressure on the quarterback. I think he had like 4 sacks in 2 weeks before he got hurt. So it seemed like he was coming on. I'm giving him a C because right now, I mean, you don't know what you're going to get right now. I was joking with my brother yesterday. I was saying like Jameis Winston is a box of chocolate. So I guess I'm going to have to use the same thing for the Marcus Davenport. He's like a box of chocolates, the same box of chocolate from Forrest Gump. You never know what you're going to get. You never know if you're going to get him to play, a solid season, or you don't know if you're going to see him get hurt. I mean, it's basically kind of up and down for Davenport. A lot of people don't like his laid-back demeanor. People just think that he doesn't have an edge, maybe because he don't have a sack celebration like Cam Jordan stack, or Demario Davis, doing the whole Ryu from Street Fighter type thing, or like the secondary, all this dapping and all that, but he don't have no handshake or no celebrations or anything like that. He's a guy that just kind of quiet, about his business, ain't trying to rattle the cage, go out there, set the edge pretty well. And, when you get a sack, man, he don't really do too much of anything. Maybe act like he's going to come back, or he's been there before. We can't, base our logic or our thoughts on a guy not being tough. The fact that he ain't celebrating in a circle with the rest of the team, maybe that's just not his thing. But I think that he can be a really good football player, man. I just think that we need to give him a chance. I think we in a Who Dat Nation sometimes, we get a little bit impatient with guys. Guys start getting hurt. We up here wanting to kick them up out of the door and not giving guys a chance. But me, personally, I like to give him a chance because I think he has a great upside. We know our offense is elite. Let's talk about our defense, brother. Ricky Moon, we can talk about our defense. Once again, we just talked about Davenport. But our defense is, defense can really be good. For those 5 weeks that Drew Brees went down, that was probably one of the best defensive performances I've seen out of the Saints defense in years. These guys can do some really great things. The biggest issue with the New Orleans Saints, I think we all can agree, it's the fact that they give up big plays at the end of games. If they didn't give up those big plays at the end of games, they can be ranked as one of the top defenses in the league. But it's just the fact that people look at them, and when they're ranking them, they think about some of the big plays and some of the disappointing plays they gave up in the postseason. So because of that, teams look down on them and say, oh, man, I don't know about them. But at the end of the day, they still are a good defense. I got a lot of respect for them. Guys flying around, guys making tackles, guys knowing where they are. Guys got good chemistry. So I have to be 100. Thanks, TJ. I miss your podcast. You'll be on the info quick and on the point. Yeah, Eric, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. But like I said, I answered your question more in depth on the podcast that me and my big brother EJ did last night. So I kind of breezed past it, man. That was kind of, a little bit of a synopsis of what I actually said. I think I kind of talked about it in depth about 10 minutes. So if you want to check it out, man, you can check out that podcast on YouTube, and it'll definitely answer your question a little bit more in depth. Joseph says, do you see Callaway being the second deep threat for us at receiver? No, I don't. Not this season, at least. I see him going to the practice squad. I see him going to the practice squad because I don't feel like he's going to have enough playing time or enough time to develop chemistry with the quarterbacks. And if he does play, it's probably going to be later in the season when somebody end up getting hurt and they can activate him. They need to put you on ESPN, TJ. Jamarcus, thank you, man. Hey, man. Honestly, I never wanted to be on television, man. I've always wanted to do radio. I'm blessed to do what I do right now every day. I'm about to go on the air in about 20 minutes. I'm blessed to do these things, man. I always wanted to do radio. I always just like talking and stuff like that. I never just, wanted to be on television in front of a camera talking to folk, man. I ain't got that much confidence in my looks, you know what I'm saying? I'm just kidding, man. I just don't want to be, I've just never wanted to be one of those guys who wanted to be on television. You know what I'm saying? I just never did. My mom always, it's funny because my mom always wanted me to be on television. Like when she knew I was into broadcasting and stuff. Oh, they hiring over there at WJTV out there in Jackson. Because my mom, she stays in Vicksburg, Mississippi. And I'm like, Mom, I don't want to do that. I never really had an interest of doing news. I never have, man. I've always wanted to do sports talk. I'm doing like just contemporary music right now, uplifting hip hop and R&B. I work at a station, that play that type of music. And of course, I do the State of the Saints podcast. So I'm fulfilling both of my dreams, man, but overall, I want to be a sports broadcaster, man. I want to do sports consistently every day, have my own sports show probably in the afternoons where people can call in and stuff like that. Biggest dream is to work for the New Orleans Saints radio network. I like to do what Bobby Bear and Christian Garrett are doing. One day maybe I'll be able to work with those guys. I send my stuff to Christian Garrett from time to time, and he says I'm good. So I hope one day, he probably pass it on to station director Steve Geller, you know what I'm saying? So Steve Geller, if you're watching this right now, your boy would love to work for WWL, man. I think I can bring a different type of dynamic to what you already have, but but appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Let's see. Let's go down. Kimberly said, I love this team, man. I can tell, Kim. I can tell that passion you have for the Saints. Has Drew Brees' thumb completely healed? I would have to say yeah, Pooh, man. I would have to say yes. Let's see. Goku off of Dragon Ball Z. Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, you talking about with the Mario Davis. That's what I was thinking of, man. But, hey, man, but Ryu does this too, right? Ryu does this on you go, Hadouken! You know what I'm saying? Like, sure, that's what he does on Street Fighter, right? Hadouken! So, I mean, it's pretty much the same in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Like, they both do the same thing, But I wasn't a real big fan of Dragon Ball Z. I know he said Goku. I know he did say Goku, but, hey, man, I grew up on Street Fighter 2, man. And I know for a fact Ryu used to do like this, And Ken used to do like this, all right? I know that, you know what I'm saying? I used to see that. What do you think about Malcolm Jenkins' return? I think it's a really good move, Ricky. I think that the Saints have leadership in all levels on defense now. You have the defensive line leader, Cam Jordan. You got the linebacker leader in Demario Davis. And now you have the secondary leader in Malcolm Jenkins. I think that you have three guys, honestly, man, off the field are leaders. Straight up. They're straight up leaders. So they lead by example. These guys are constantly mentioned as one of the men of the year for the NFL. And I think that you have leadership on all three levels with Malcolm Jenkins. I feel like it's going to really help a player like Marcus Williams develop as a player because some of the same issues Malcolm Jenkins had earlier in his career, that's what Marcus Williams is dealing with. So I feel like he's going to wrap his arms around Marcus Williams, talk to him, possibly get into his ear and motivate him and mold him and shape him into being a better safety, being that safety that we all know that he can be. So I'm really excited about that. Speak on Bond. Think he's going to be a great addition. You want me to speak on Bond? Okay, no problem, man. Linebacker Zack Vaughn, linebacker out of Wisconsin. He's a guy in college. He was able to put his hand on the ground. He was also able to stand up, which means he can rush the quarterback and also he can play in coverage. And a lot of things what people are not mentioning. This is something that people aren't mentioning about Zack Vaughn. Zack Vaughn had a higher rating than Patrick Queen and Kenan Murray at the linebacker position. He had an overall ranking of an 86. Patrick Queen had an overall ranking of an 84. And Kenan Murray had a ranking of 84. This guy had a higher rating than both of those guys. So a lot of people didn't expect for Zack Vaughn to be there in the third round for the Saints. And a lot of people are thinking it's because of some injuries or something like that he had. Maybe he'll be able to, be lingering or something like that. But this guy right here is a guy that can end up being a leader for the New Orleans Saints. He's a smart football player. He's a guy that flies around the field. He's a guy that's not afraid to make a tackle. He's a guy that's not afraid to go and rush the quarterback. So when you have a guy that can do like all different types of things at the linebacker position, that's a recipe for success. So we all know the Saints always have issues later in the season on defensive ends going down, getting injured. This guy can press the quarterback as well as cover tight ends and running backs. So I think that's a good addition, Sean. I think that he's going to be a really good New Orleans Saint. He's a smart player too. Laser surgery and a better offensive line. Let him sit and maybe give him a few snaps, less that critical situations, and we got a 50-50. What I wanted to see is he fix his personal life. Well, Ryan, honestly, I think he has fixed his personal life. I haven't heard anything else out of Jameis Winston, and honestly, the whole Uber situation happened when he was in college. The NFL just suspended him because of something he did in college. This guy's gotten married. I feel like he got a little bit more serious. He realizes that things can be taken away from him. So I think that he is going to be a better player, man. And I think that we're looking at some of the things that he did in college, and we think that he's immature. But Jameis Winston, as far as him being in the NFL, I mean, he hasn't done anything wrong. He hasn't done anything wrong. He hasn't done anything to warrant a suspension. All of this stuff has happened when he was at Florida State. Washington or Murray as number 2 back. Latavius Murray will be the number 2 back, but I do feel like they need to use Dwayne Washington. We see what they do out there in San Francisco, using 3 running back sets. I don't understand why the Saints don't do that. I mean, Washington has shown that he can run a football. We know Latavius Murray can run a football, and so can Alvin Kamara. So why not use all 3 guys? This is the last one. Joe Echo says, I think Vaughn will be a great addition to the team. I do too, Joe. I think he's going to be a very great addition to the team, and I think he's going to be one of those linebackers that will be able to complement Demario Davis, Kiko Alonso, and Alex Anzalone. But I want to say thank you all for your questions. Thank you so much for chiming in to the State of the Saints podcast live, and I'm about to go on the air in about 15 minutes, so thank you all very much for your time. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com, search The State of the Saints podcast, and also facebook.com. If you're not follow up the State of the Saints podcast, please hit the follow button and follow the State of the Saints podcast. And also inbox your questions through Facebook, or you can email at stateofthesaints@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Thank you all so much for spending your afternoon with yours truly. And until next time, all I got to say is, who dat?